Hello everybody and welcome to History Bite number 94, dated October 27th, 2020. I'm Walter, your mobile historian and blue-collar scholar. This History Bite is entitled Parole versus Probation. Lots of people confuse parole with probation, or mistakenly view these terms as interchangeable, when they are in fact very distinct things, but two distinct things that have lots of similarities. So this video will explain the differences between parole and probation, two criminal law terms. Let's start with parole. Parole is essentially early release from prison with the privilege of being able to serve the rest of your sentence outside of prison, providing you meet the terms and conditions required by the local parole board. Now, of course, terms and conditions of parole will vary greatly based on the severity of the offense, the offender themselves, the state in question, and other factors such as your prison record. All right. Now, with parole, you are being released early from prison to serve the rest of your sentence outside of prison. Once you are released from prison, you are not scot-free. Okay, a lot of people mistakenly believe that. You are still, in the custody of the state as a prisoner, but you are serving the rest of your sentence outside of prison itself. I say that you are still a prisoner, though not physically in a jail, because with parole, and those terms and conditions I was talking about, if you violate those terms and conditions, the individual known as the parole officer will notify, or rather is supposed to notify, the court in question that was responsible, for overseeing your case, that you have violated your parole. And if you do that, it is highly possible that you could be sent back to prison, and serve the rest of your sentence behind bars, So you are indeed still, a prisoner, just outside of prison, And depending on the conditions of your parole, which, like I said, can vary greatly. Some of those conditions might be you have to, of course, find a job. You may be required to take various types of counseling. You might not be permitted to consume alcohol or carry firearms, things of that nature. It will vary, like I said, based on lots of factors. But it is your duty as a parolee, to do your best to honor these, conditions, or you may well be violated by your parole officer, and you could possibly be sent back to prison. Upon successful completion of your parole, your sentence is complete. You have served your time. You are now a free person. You have just served the rest of your sentence outside of prison. So that is parole, folks. Now let's jump over to probation. Probation is a sentence imposed by a judge as an alternative to prison, or as a concurrent part of your sentence, along with a stint of jail time as well. In many, perhaps most circumstances, probation is offered to a convicted criminal defendant as an alternative to going to prison. Like parole, it has usually a litany of different terms and conditions attached to it, which must be followed Okay? Like a parolee, someone on probation has a probation officer to report to. Okay? Like a parole officer with a parolee, a probation officer essentially oversees you, okay, and ensures that you are being compliant with the terms and conditions of your probation. If your probation officer sees that you are not honoring the conditions of your probation, like a parole officer, they have the ability to violate you, okay, and inform the court that you are not following the conditions of your probation, which could result in you being sent to prison to serve the rest of your sentence, okay? Violation of parole and violation of probation are crimes of and in themselves, okay, and can result in jail time, all right? Individuals, all right, who are given probation, all right, it is always for a term of time. If you are given a probationary sentence, whatever that time is, okay, it has to be followed according to the terms of probation, all right? If you violate your probation for the rest of that time, all right, if you are violated, okay, by your probation officer, you could be sent to jail to serve the rest of that original probationary time behind bars, okay? So probation and parole, okay, are methods whereby an individual, all right, is essentially serving their time outside of prison, though originated by different circumstances. Remember, parolees have already served perhaps a substantial part of their sentence behind bars, okay? And it was up to the sentencing judge to inform the parolee, all right, the criminal defendant rather, how long he would have to serve before he was eligible for parole. And once he was eligible for parole and the parole board found him acceptable, they granted the parole and he was released early from prison to serve the rest of his or her sentence outside of prison. Okay? So the parolee has already served time in jail and is being allowed to serve the rest of their sentence outside of prison according to the terms and conditions of the parole. Those terms and conditions are set by the parole board. Okay? Someone who has received a probationary sentence, again, we're leaning toward the side that they have received a probationary sentence as an alternative to incarceration. Typically, this individual, all right, in leaning this way, this individual does not serve any jail time, but instead is given a probationary sentence to serve outside of prison, okay? And he or she must follow the terms of their probation. Those terms are set by the judge, okay? If you do not follow them, you may well be sent to prison to serve the remainder of that time, which forever, however long the time that probation was set to be. All right? In addition to anything else the judge may have discovered, if you were charged with anything else, and of course violating your probation, like I said, is an offense of in itself. So he or she could add more time. All right? And the same is true with parolees. All right? They too must rigidly follow the terms of their parole. Otherwise, their parole officer could violate them. Their case could get sent back to court, and they too, if the judge decides, could be sent back to prison, all right, to serve the rest of their sentence in jail. All right. So, all in all, those are the primary differences between parole and probation. Someone who is paroled has already served time in prison and has been released early to serve the rest of their sentence outside of prison according to the terms and conditions imposed upon them by the parole board. All right. Someone on probation has been given a probationary sentence to serve their term outside of prison. They typically do not go to prison. The probationary sentence will be served outside of prison according to the terms and conditions imposed by the sentencing judge. Okay. In both circumstances, violating the terms and conditions, okay, of your parole or your probation could land you, for a parolee, back in jail, or one given a probationary sentence in jail to serve the rest of that initial time. Okay, so any questions or controversies, just leave them down below and I'll be happy to answer them. Parole versus probation, folks. Take care, stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you at the next History Bite. Thank you for listening to this video, and if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. I appreciate all your support. Have a good one.